So I will call the meeting to order. And the first thing on the agenda is to approve the meeting agenda. And I don't know if they have changes or anything. The only thing I would say is item 4A. I do not believe board action is required. To appoint the committee.
Oh, right.
You do that.
Yeah.
I can just do it.
That's right. The power vested in you.
So there's no public discussion here, or is there? No. Item 4A is to appoint the committee to evaluate the director. I did contact people and they all said yes. And so Dan and DJ and Tom will be that committee. So the next item is the policy review of the collection development policy. And I don't know, Anne, if you have things you wanted to say. I do appreciate your write-up. So
So this is our 3-year regular review. If you remember, I sent it to you in April just to get some quick language in there to address some issues that were going on with people. With a digital content aggregator, they provided everything, another collection development policy, and then got into trouble because there were some things on there and people wanted them off, and then they just pulled them within like days. So we wanted to have some language in there just to say that things on Google or Canopy might not meet our criteria. So here we're back with a more thorough review. Some of the things that we wanted to do was we changed the finance policy. So we wanted to update the finance language that mirrored the finance policy and the collection development policy. We also wanted to support the library's mission to the goals for collection under guidelines. And then a couple other things of just adding information on what criteria was used to decide what formats are removed from the collection. And then adding information as well about what resources staff use to consider labeling or cataloging, categorizing materials in this collection. That's actually where I get most of my questions, is why it's confirmed. Just providing that information to patrons, and the policy adds clarity. Any questions?
I appreciate your call out on the library mission terminology that landed with.
I've got a couple of very small diction suggestions.
Sure.
This would be in 6012. And in that second line on that, 60121, on the first one, we use supports twice in successive sentences. And in fact, I think serves would be better for the second term. Our collection serves all ages and abilities. And then instead of for, seeking information, education, culture, and recreation.
Nice punch up.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And then one other, even smaller one.
Okay.
Never put an English professor on it. It's always going to pick things apart. Yeah.
That's great.
On the next page on 60127, second thing down, it's in the passive voice, and I would say it'd be more forceful to put it in the active voice. So it would read, instead of are considered, it says that first sentence, and then it considers patron use and demand, so on and so forth. So it changes it from the passive voice, are considered, to it considers the library, it being the library. A very modest change, but it does make it more forceful. So.
We're gonna have the best policies by the time.
I know.
What are we always saying? The policies are backbone, so.
You'll all be running and screaming out of the room.
And on the classification, so publishers and vendors, did they ever disagree? Do they categorize things?
Not normally, and I
Yeah.
think sometimes that can be groupthink. There have been times where we paused and said, wait, what? And looked at maybe an example of the new Enola Holmes went to young adults and we got it and we said, isn't this in the kids' room?
Yeah.
Oh, it's in the kids' room. Well, now she's a young adult. So we did that. We went and looked back at all of the kids' room items to see, well, were they categorized correctly to begin with? So we do catch those things when,
Thanks.
you know,
Yeah, I suppose publishers have marketing motives.
they do have marketing. And then they send them to the reviewers, and specific reviewers are in those,
YA
YA reviewers and so forth
Yeah.
and so on.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? In that case, we ready to vote on approving the policy? Do we need a motion
I move the approval of the policy.
in a second?
Second.
2 seconds. All in favor? Okay, staff reports. Ms. Ellsworth?
I have two things to add. One is a request to change something on the December agenda. We want to make sure we can give that policy 802 full consideration, the confidentiality policy. So I'd like to ask if we could move that to either February or March.
Okay. Do we,
I think February, it feels very safe that we could have it done, but the agenda looks a little more fuller than March. But I'm very comfortable with February if that would be something.
I mean, February has a lot of things,
We have
but
the
no
direct-
policy.
well, we have the evaluation.
Oh, you're right. Never mind.
Does it? Last year.
Tom's planning on it to be really short since he's on the committee.
That.
Like your meetings, yeah.
No, I agree. I withdraw.
So does anybody have strong opinions? I mean, just based on the blank space in the box, I'd say March is pretty blank right now.
What do you think? Yep.
Great. And the second, we had a Johnson County Library Director meeting, which we hadn't had in a little while. And set a date and intention for this year's legislative reception. I'm not sure if folks have got an email yet, but if not, you will soon, with the date of Monday, December 5th, 5 to 6 p.m., I think. With the emphasis, with the focus being, the presentation will be on children's services with an intellectual freedom framework.
And it'll be in person this
It'll be
year.
in person, and it'll be here. In the digital media lab. That we mix it up. a
What time
little.
did you say?
I think it's 5 to 6.
5:30, 6:30.
5:30 or 6:30. Invitations to follow. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer questions, but I don't have anything else to add. Do want to welcome Katie to her first board meeting with us. Not surprisingly, she's hit the ground running and great to work with. Super optimistic for what the future will bring.
And we did an introductions last time, or?
No, I don't think
No,
we
it's
did.
Katie's first.
That's a board.
Katie's first meeting.
Would Katie like to know the board meeting members' names?
Thank you.
Or maybe you want to start and introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. Well, my name is Katie Roche, and I'm finishing out my third week here, leading the Iowa City Public Library Friends Foundation. And I'm just really thrilled to be working on behalf of helping to strengthen the library and have a great team here at the library, really impressed with everyone throughout every part of the library. And as Ellsworth said, I'm just really optimistic for the future.
Okay. Well, my name is Carol Kirsch and I'm the current board president. This is my last year of being on the board. So, John? Want to go next?
I'm John Rayburn, and this is my first year on the board. So, and in real life, I was a teacher at the university in the English department.
I take.
I'm Dan Stevenson. I've been on the board since summer of 2001. Out here, I'm a teacher.
Really, he means 2021.
2021, that's 2001.
Only a fifth of us. It's okay.
You're on the board.
You turn 6 feet old, so
When I first got a library card here, it felt like that.
I'm Robin Petzold, and this is my last year on the board.
I'm Hannah Schultz. This is my 4th year on the board.
Ready. Well, welcome. I know that everybody has a lot of confidence in you. Things will be great.
I'll switch before we leave your report. I love the new format.
Yes.
May I get greedy? What would be really cool would be a clickable table of contents, because, you know, on this,
Oh, that would be good.
I don't know what the workflow is that creates this, but it's not, you've got headings, so it's not too hard to text.
That's great. I think we can do that. Any other format feedback would be great. We were pleased to put this packet out in the format, but we expect there to be tweaks and changes as we kind of hone in on what works and what doesn't.
Great.
So pretty.
Yeah.
We'll pass that on to Alon. And I'm embarrassed that I included the legislative reception blurb in there, but it felt like a meeting was more recent than that.
Well, it does say 5:30 to 6:30, so. Okay.
Actually, if I may, I might ask one more question. So all the departments provide legislative priorities to the city, is that right?
We're invited to
Yeah.
share legislative
Yeah.
priorities, so we take advantage of that
Yeah.
invite. And then the city will sort of condense those into what they push forward.
Right. Okay.
And I always feel like if it's, whether or not it makes the next step, it's still important to share those at that level.
Yeah, and I think it's a good exercise to say, well, if we could get these, what would they be?
Other comments? Those are okay. Then we have the departmental reports, and I guess Jason is up first.
Ask away. Yeah, just a little intro into tech training there, lots of words.
Up in that tech training or?
Yeah, trying to give you an idea of different ways that the public interact with us in order to get those things solved. This is our newest offering, which is volunteer run, which is sort of how it all started back before the pandemic, when we started a thing called Tech Zone, Tech Help, drop in Tech Help in a way, and then people are like, "Where is it?" They're like, "Please come and ask us at any time." And now we're sort of trying this again with volunteers to see if there's interest in there. This is our third week. Tuesday was our third week, and there has been folks already visiting, waiting for the volunteers to show up forward. It's a lot of, hand holding and an hour-long session, but individual sometimes, depending on how many volunteers and how many questions there are.
You get repeat customers.
So third week. So I don't know because I wasn't here Tuesday, but there were 2 folks waiting last Tuesday, and there was one person waiting this Tuesday. I'm imagining the same person.
And is there any chance they'll come back next semester?
Yeah, the plan is for them to do it. We started, by the time we got everybody organized, it was November. And then we have November and the middle of December, they'll be off for winter break. We plan to come back in the spring, so we'll finalize here in the next week or so what dates we want that to be. They are going to start back up at the senior center as well, so it may just be that they stick with the one session here.
Well, I even think it's a community service to provide a volunteer opportunity, because sometimes it's hard to find meaningful volunteer opportunities. So I think it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, it's a little different from our normal volunteer opportunities in that it's another group's volunteers.
Right.
But they have a nice solid board of 5 executive student. They have an executive committee that runs the program, and then we have volunteers that come and go. So we are always sure those 5 folks are available, and then extras. So, and they did want to stress that I think the mission was to help older adults, but they've also expressed interest in helping anyone really. But we've been marketing it. So.
Other comments? The voting, really, there were 1,200 people who came here to vote? That seems like a lot of people.
We had Sunday through Thursday. You look at the early voting results from the auditor's office, they did have a much more successful year at the office and at their parking location, drive-up location. So I think this year they definitely saw a lot more people just going directly to the source to look at it. So our site was a little bit of, probably people just wandering through. But we also got a lot of calls Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so I can come there and vote. So next year, or next general election, I guess, we'll probably let them know. It's kind of up to the staff at the auditor's office and what days they're available. This time around, they didn't have the resources to do here, Coralville, and Liberty, and Fund. So they chose to just do auditor's office, Coralville.
Overall, I think there are fewer satellite sites, so that would drive more folks here or there. So yes, they could be open.
And I think just because of so many people at the main auditor's office, I went on Sunday. I imagine as those get busier, they probably have to pull the resources to the office just to help. I mean, that traffic is a lot.
It is hard to fill your ballot out on your steering wheel. I think it's very difficult to do.
That's with this in the 2-sided
Yeah,
ballot, there's a lot. Yeah.
and you're so afraid of doing something wrong and then it can count. Anyway. Okay, thank you very much. Sam?
Sam is not here, but I'm very to speak for them. They asked me to. They are actually performing their first duties as ILA visitors today with ILA Planting there in Johnston.
Okay.
I was looking through their report, and I was involved in like the first 3 things and was there when they gave their presentation. So they wrote it just for me to present on.
So this little box that says our study visitors, is that the farmer's market?
Yes, that was for the farmers market.
Okay.
That's how many came on in June, July, August, September, and October. October, it was really cute.
I was going to say there were some folks Saturdays there. I think there were people that looked really
How does
cool.
that compare to other sites? And some of those numbers seem really high.
Yeah, they were much higher than no. Also because we were there, for a 3-hour time block, and that's the longest we have compared to any of our other stops. Other stops are anywhere from 30 minutes with the longest, I think, being an hour and 15 minutes for a stop. Otherwise, we're pretty balanced here and there. So, when we're in a focused area that draws a lot of attention, like the farmers market or some of our other outreach sites, we've gone to the flying breakfast, we go to parties in the park. We'll see about those types of numbers at those locations as well. Really happy. And I absolutely love the little story in the second box. It was one of my staff that had forwarded to me, and I forwarded immediately to Dan. I'm like, oh, you have to, this is just the most endearing little story. Happy.
Other comments? I'm always amazed at how much goes on.
I think the one graph, I've just talked with the Weber teacher as well. You can see Weber Elementary is one of our highest. Really, really hard to read in the little tiny box.
Yes.
But Weber Elementary, they work really, really hard to promote the service. I was emailing her today with the AIM card, and she talked about going out there again with all the kids for their before and after school stuff. So those sites and those stops that are real well promoted and that, have someone to get them there really, really helps.
Makes a difference. Yeah, no, I don't know, those letters are a little hard. I can't quite do it, but. Okay, Katie, you have anything to add to your report?
Well, I'm really getting my feet wet in this position at the moment. And I'm really excited to do some planning for this department and for this organization. So, we need to work on a communications plan to plan for the immediate future and in 18 months, 2 years in advance. And that really involves making sure that I understand all the challenges that are coming at the library so that we can incorporate the library's communications plan into the foundation's plan. I also need to I need to work with the library staff and Ellsworth in particular on establishing a case of needs for the library, both in the immediate future and in the long term. So that we're looking out in the horizon, even 5 years, 10 years in advance and anticipating those needs. And then really evaluating the systems that we're using to entice donations and encourage recurrence. I was pretty surprised to see there's only 25 or 30 people that have recurring gifts established with the foundation. And that can really be the bread and butter of giving. People can break those gifts down into smaller gifts that really add up over time. And, if that hasn't been a priority in the past, that's probably why the number is smaller. And so I think if we prioritize helping people to give online and understand that can help them to break those gifts into smaller chunks, we can really see increased giving, and that also will help grow their donor set, which I think will be important to the longevity of this organization. So I just see a lot of promise and really strong bones, and that's what you really hope for when you go into a position like this, that you can really build off of a really strong professional program and how you really establish that. So.
I wasn't here. I was in Davenport, but did they have good turnout for the Prairie Lakes?
It was the first in-person event since COVID, and people bought very generously. I think we maybe had. I don't know how much online business was done. We haven't gotten that report from them yet. But I think maybe there was about 25, 30 people max that came out. Flip-flap dinosaurs seemed to be the purchase of the evening. A lot of folks were excited about that, but particularly 5-year-olds. and we got to meet a lot of people, which was great. Introduced myself, and then also heard from a lot of folks about interest in seeing the event become more of a gala event again. And, you know, what could that look like if we kind of brought it back to some of its pre-pandemic glory days? So I had a nice conversation with Jan about that. And I think we'll talk about that and see if that's something we can return to.
Well, I know they're quite conservative about coming out of COVID, it seems like.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't know, we'll call this survey miscellaneous because that's got an agenda item. Did you have anything to add about that?
I do. I have something sort of significant. If anybody did a deep dive into comparison of year over year, you will notice some surprising differences, and we notice those too. And we are digging into why we are seeing those. I think last year we were between administrative coordinators, and we were just coming off the COVID closure. So I think what happened was we actually made some reported errors in last year's numbers, but did not have a close benchmark from the previous year to automatically catch those. So now, as we sort of normalize back, we're seeing that there may be some fixing that needs to happen. So we reached out to the appropriate city department to make sure we have the accurate pictures from, or what we need to change from last year. But I'm guessing that those that seem out of whack, it was an error last year that we will fix.
And I did notice some circulation.
There were some things in like the employment section, number of hours worked, et cetera.
Oh, okay.
That I think was, the state library changes the language of the questions pretty regularly, but the essence of this part, I don't think has changed much. So I do believe this was just an error on my part. But we are, like I said, we reached out to the right city folks to clarify that, and I will send those to the state library as soon as we get all the details. None of the numbers are on, I don't think we changed our accreditation or our tier status or anything like that. So I don't have any concerns about ramifications. We just want to make sure that we have accurate numbers in the database for every year.
And this is just a question. What is Bridges? That's a state library and we don't participate. Is it for smaller libraries or?
Yeah, it's a consortium for ebooks and audiobooks through Overdrive.
Oh, okay.
So a couple of libraries in Johnson County use it, like Solon. Smaller libraries use it quite frequently.
Okay.
And I was never clear who or what this document, who commissions it and what do they do with it?
This is basically our annual report to the state. So this is used to make sure that we're staying within our tier status and is part of accreditation, although accreditation is not every year. So this is a way for them to maintain those statistics for every library in the state. They actually do a really great job on their website of having searchable databases of all of this content for almost any library in the state, so that you can go in and make comparisons, which can be a really big help for anything from capital campaign work to just general decision making. But it does feed into our accreditation and tier status in sort of a secondary way. I think I don't know what would happen if we didn't send it in because everybody does. But we, like I said, it's and we are double checking our numbers. We will update the numbers with the board once we get them. We may not put the whole report back in, but we'll highlight the things that we changed.
In the opening stuff here, the city population grew 10% between last year and this year. A11, 74,828, as opposed to 67,000 in the previous year. That can't be right.
I think it goes from
Based on
the census.
It goes from what?
It's based on the census.
So this is probably the 2010 census number.
I think that's the 2010 census going to the 2020 census.
Right. So where does this larger number come from?
That's the 2020 census.
Oh, and what's the smaller number
I
then?
think that's the 2010 census.
Oh,
So those numbers only change once a decade.
but I mean, it's under the category previous year and current year. And so then on the next page, you say, is any information in questions A1 to 12 changed in the past year? And the answer is no, but in fact, that's a pretty big change, a 10% increase in population.
Jen, is
It's
that,
pre-filled.
I think that's
It's
pre-filled.
pre-filled by the
Yeah.
state,
Okay.
so the state provides all. The state provides all that information. And then what they're asking is, here's the information, did any of it change? And then we say yes or no.
Well,
It's just poorly labeled because it's not last year's population. It's last census's.
it's the last
No.
census before the penultimate census.
Right.
Yeah. I just didn't know who this was going to or why. I mean, I figured out it was somebody at the state level, but because you can tell by the language. And who in the state government, what instrumentality does it go to?
state library?
Library. There is a state.
The library.
There is a state
The
library.
state library,
The state library, okay.
yes.
And there's a state librarian.
And that's part of the Department of Education in our state, right?
I don't
Yes,
know.
it is.
I don't know if it always was.
I don't think it
I
always.
don't think it always
I think
was.
that was changed. But I will make a note to make sure we include a cover sheet on the next one. That's a good question. And if members of the public were reading, I'm sure they'd have the same question.
Otherwise, it's very informative.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, whenever, you read about the library in photo, at least when I read about the library in photo, it's incredibly impressive what all it's done here. And done well, actually, from my observation.
There are I guess it's worth noting, there's also several fields in the report that don't have any comparison data. Those are new questions for this year. The state library regularly, frequently makes changes to this. Sometimes they're communicated mid-year or at time of reporting. So we just sort of take it as it comes and do the best reporting that we can. Luckily, this library does a lot of statistic collection anyway, so we're ready. We're often ready to take those on, even if they weren't made clear in the beginning of the fiscal year.
Any questions? Okay, well, the president doesn't really have a report, so. Announcements from members? None? Everybody's well and looking forward to hosting Thanksgiving. Committee reports, the foundations committee, have they met?
The foundation met last week. Last week, it feels like it was. We've had nothing to report from there. Really not much. Mostly introductions with gating.
Communications, the article was really interesting about the comics and, what is it?
Comics and cookies
Comics and cookies.
is a new venture that we're doing. The Gazette started a Kids Gazette during the pandemic. And now they have online and they have print versions, and they reached out to have us be a part of it. And so Ann Wilmoth, who runs a cookies and comics tween program once a month, is adding it to an online version. I'm sorry.
We won't make you talk anymore.
Literally just
No, it was interesting. And I think, let's see, that brings us to the consent agenda. I was confused about the draft. It says Iowa City Public Library Board of Trustees meeting agenda. Is it meeting minutes? Is that what it should be?
Yeah, that's,
Yes, minutes from the October days.
Yes, that's the draft of the minute. This is part of the new template, and we can change it if you want.
So, but so we, instead of calling it minutes, we call it agenda?
So I guess the process of how it worked was we would take the agenda to use the minutes. So if you want to change it going forward,
So you take the agenda and fill in the minutes. Okay, well,
I think the minutes like a lot of it good though.
I think minutes is a little more clear about what its purpose is. And the only other thing I would say would be under call meeting to order, the next one down, it says approval of the November 17th meeting agenda, and I'm assuming it was October.
right.
yes, it should have been October.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And that's they're very extensive meeting minutes. We've still got out at 5:45.
The minutes are longer than the meeting was.
I do think it took longer to read them than we spent in the meeting, yes.
We just try to be really thorough, but we could slim them down.
Yeah.
No, well,
I do think, yeah, it's helpful if you miss a meeting.
if you miss a meeting, it's very helpful. So I made my comments about the minutes, and the disbursements. I don't know how many. Anybody have other concerns, questions, corrections? No. In that case, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda with those two changes.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the final thing is to set the agenda for the December meeting, which Ellsworth kind of got it out of order, but
Sorry.
so I guess at this time it's approving the agenda to move the policy review to the March meeting, policy 802. Any other things that should be on the agenda that aren't? Well, that doesn't require a board approval, right? Other? In that case, I will move that we adjourn.